Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is real estate expert Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Thanks for having me back, Jim.
Well, you know, some people have been buying blind. They're so panicked about buying a home that a lot of them have agreed to buy without any preconditions or inspections and so on, and that's been disastrous. But how come people are not talking about, so I think the lesson has been, get it inspected. You find out if there's a lien or not, find out if it's on a real good foundation or not. But we haven't heard much about people. Should they be in a home right now or should they be waiting? And again, with that panic thing that has already happened, it's hard for people to do, to have that patience. What should people be doing about buying right now?
Yeah, so that's a good way of wording it. Buying blind, that's a term that we use in-house here too, Jim. What your listeners need to understand is this. Since the 1950s, in other words, when the Canadian Real Estate Association was first formed, and in all of the years since, right up until today, every single rule, regulation, statistic, talking point, this decision that has been made since the 1950s until today has been to the benefit of the seller. So what that means is that even the best and wisest home buyer walking out there to purchase a home is still buying blind, because the strategy, how they purchase the property, is exactly the same really today as it was in the 1950s. The only difference is maybe if you're lucky enough, you can get a building inspection done after you've negotiated the price. So when you're asking me the question, should I be buying or not, I would say in about half of the country, it's probably still an okay thing to purchase a home today, because your market is either flat, it's appreciating at less than house price inflation rate, or you can still acquire certain properties in certain categories where you're not going to be burned. But in the rest of the country, like certainly Vancouver, Toronto, the GTA, you really don't want to be buying right now. When you do buy, you don't want to buy blind any longer. I'll explain it to people this way. If you go onto a car lot and you're looking for a Honda Accord, you look at the Honda Accords that are all lined up on a used one for that matter, all lined up there for sale. You're on the dashboard is the number of kilometers, how used the car has been. You know that the house is already, those cars, have already been certified. They've been emission tested. They can be sold. You're not going to drive it off the lot and the wheels are not going to fall off. The only real difference that you're going to be looking at, other than your personal preferences, like the color you like, what color interior you like, maybe you want an automatic transmission or a standard, you're going to be comparing one car to the next. And before you put an offer in on that vehicle, you already know what the competitor cars are offered for sale. You can go to the Kelly Blue Book and see what that car should be selling for with that number of given kilometers. The car has already been inspected. The car has already been emission tested. You've got all of those protections in place when you're buying even a $2,000 used car off of a used car dealer lot. But with real estate, you don't get that, because from 1950 forward, the entire system has worked for the benefit of the sellers. And you are going to be another decade or 2 decades before there is any opportunity, just the opportunity for that to change, unless you implement a different strategy on your own. Your real estate agents, your organized real estate, no one out there is going to offer this strategy for you because the system isn't designed for it. In our opinion, you should not be purchasing the largest single investment of your lifetime blind. You should know prior to putting an offer in on the property, not after you did the offer, but before you've done the offer, what that property is valued at. You should be purchasing that property knowing, putting an offer in on it, if the furnace is good or the furnace needs to be replaced. Do the shingles have 10 years of life in them, or are you going to have to replace them in 3? Every single home that's purchased in Canada, that knowledge that you really should have when you're negotiating the price is delivered to you after that price negotiation has already taken place. After you've become emotionally attached to the house. After you've spent money getting an appraisal, getting the building inspection done. After all those things have happened, then you get the news. Then they tell you how many kilometers are actually on that used car. Then they tell you whether or not that car would actually pass a safety check. Then they tell you after the fact whether or not that car its emissions are safe. After the fact. That's how you're buying real estate today. And that's why you're buying it blind. People ask us, what is the number one mistake that people make when they're buying a home? The number one mistake they make is they actually buy it in the opposite way that they should be buying it. In other words, they fall in love with the property, offer a price, and only then, after a contract is already signed, do they find out if what they bought was what they thought they bought. There is no need in 2017 for that to have to happen. There are technologies available today that when you're buying a house, you should be buying the house exactly the same if it was a used car on the lot. You should have a blue book price on what the house is actually worth. You should know the number of repairs that are going to have to go into that house over the next 5 years. You should know if that house is even safe to live in. In other words, is there mold somewhere? You should know whether or not where that house price forecast is headed right now, so that when you come to close on the property 2 or 3 months later, is the property going to be worth more or less than what you're paying for it today? You should know what its odds are price are going to be 3 to 5 years out. There is no need in 2017 for anyone anywhere in this country, in any of the major, in any city of over 50,000 people, to have to purchase a home blind. There are strategies and technologies that out there today that you can employ so that you make an informed decision before you offer a certain price, not after.
Now, does it make a difference if you're buying a house on the speculation it'll increase in value and you're going to sell it later? Or if you want to make that, say, your permanent home, I have no plans to move from here?
Does it make a difference? Yeah, it does make a difference, because if you have a 25 to 40 year outlook, then the interest rate that you're going to pay on the mortgage versus what the price that you pay for the home, they work together. So you have to be sitting down and looking at your costs. What your listeners won't understand is that in the last 2 weeks, so I think it was on the 19th of July, the qualification rate went from 4.64% to 4.84% for a mortgage. Now that sounds so innocent. A little tiny 0.2% interest rate change on the qualifying rate to purchase a home. If you're going to you're going to get a new mortgage. That little tiny 0.2% change actually naturally causes over a 4% reduction in the average selling price. Now, your listeners aren't going to hear about this for months later when the national sales get reported and all of a sudden there's been this drop in purchase price. This is not like when there's a shift in the sales mix. The shift in the sales mix causes price illusion to happen every single month. This is something different. This is an actual infrastructure change, a change to the home buying infrastructure, where you're effectively lowering what first-time buyers can pay for a house by 2%. So in other words, if they could pay $100,000 for a house at the 4.64% rate, they can only pay $98,000 for that. That $2,000 shortfall carries forward. So it's not just on the first sale. That means the people moving to the next house have $2,000 less. But on the next purchase, that $2,000 shortfall actually turns into an $8,000 shortfall. So they'll pay $8,000 less for their next property. And then on the corresponding sale that takes place after that, it goes to $32,000. So that little tiny innocent 0.2% interest rate change under the changes to the home trading infrastructure that have taken place recently by the OSFI and the Bank of Canada, that's going to impact what happens with the house price. What the buyer needs to understand, who's going to live in a house 25 to 40 years, in other words, they're going to stay there and pay off that mortgage. That change in interest rate is not the one that really matters. The one that matters is the fact that back in November, you could have gotten a 5-year term mortgage for 1.99%, and now you're going to pay about 2.99%. So it's gone up a full percentage point. That effectively increases the cost of ownership by about 8%. So those numbers you need to understand. In other words, the house would have to drop in price 8% to offset the increase in interest rates. This kind of goes back to your first question, Jim, when I'm talking about buying blind. Without having that kind of information in front of you before you make the largest financial commitment of your life, it is going to have long-term consequences 25 to 40 years from now. Should you be paying down your mortgage? Well, again, that depends on the market that you're buying in, the type of home that you're buying, and where prices are trending. Because maybe it doesn't make sense to pay down the mortgage. Maybe it makes more sense just to pay the interest or pay a small amount of principal. In other parts of the country, it may make more sense to pay off the mortgage because your house price is accelerating at a certain manner. Although, in all fairness, there is no place in Canada as of today where that is still happening. So when you're asking me, is there a difference between a speculator, a flipper, and a long-time homeowner, someone who's going to live in the house? Yes. But I will also tell you is every single one of the 11 to 12 million homeowners in Canada are all unique. Their circumstances are all unique. It has to be looked at uniquely. You have to sit down and look at all the variables because you can make a little tiny change in how you're doing things, and it has a massive compounding effect over 25 to 40 years of ownership.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
I'm Brian Fowler, President of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Ross Kay. Ross, we've heard a lot of realtors in the last few months being interviewed and heard them present stats that generated headlines. But lately, those same realtors have been silent, and in some cases, their old posts have been removed from their websites. What's going on there, and why?
What's going on is that you certainly watched out your way in British Columbia and in Vancouver. We've seen the same thing take place here in Toronto. Now, I will tell you that across Canada, there are really only two cities, and there are really only literally a handful of realtors who have placed themselves in the kind of jeopardy that they're in today, where they have gone out and pretend to be housing pundits. They've commented on the market because of their own ignorance. They believe economists, they believe housing stats, and they've commented. What they found is that many of the claims that they've made 2 or 3 months ago are really not true. It was a blip or some very short window of change happened that in order for them to get themselves on television, they jumped on that small change and presented it as something that it wasn't. You're seeing that in Vancouver with condo prices. We're seeing it with listing counts in the GTA in Ontario. So you have realtors jumping on the bandwagon for some free PR, trying to get more business. Now, what I will tell you is this. If you go and check on Realtor.ca and you try to find how many actual listings these people that you see on TV commenting are carrying, or you pull up the sales records of those people and you see how many houses they've actually sold over the last few years, you're going to see it's virtually nothing. These are people who don't sell enough homes to even have the vaguest fundamental understanding of the fundamentals that run a market. They certainly have not been in the market long enough. In other words, from back in the early 1990s or late 1980s forward, to have any experience to comment on what they're commenting on. So they should have kept their mouths silent, as 99.9% of the realtors do, because provincial trading legislation says you can't make a statement, quote a fact, quote a statistic, quote a piece of data, and present it to the public in a way that isn't truthful. So let's use the most common illusion used by organized real estate to support sellers. Again, goes back to buying blind. Everything is designed to support sellers getting the highest price possible. Nothing out there in today. As a matter of fact, in most provinces, it is illegal for the real estate agents to work in a manner that gets the buyer the lowest price possible. When we're talking about the housing market and these people commenting on it and why you may see posts removed, new listings to sales ratio. The number one most misused metric in the history of real estate. The one that every bank economist in Canada uses, CMHC uses, every single real estate board publishes, and every real estate agent will tell you it's the truth. Well, what these folks don't understand is, if that metric was true, In other words, if the sales to listing ratio of 60%, so 60% of all new, the sales are coming in at 60% of what they're being listed at. If that was true, then the fact that every single year how listings are counted, the fact that that changes, would be showing up in the data. In other words, it wouldn't be a consistent 60% number over the last 35 years. This is why. In 1987, when I started, they were still using paper counting. New listings were manually counted. And at that time, a new listing was when a new home came on the market. Then computerization took place across the real estate industry between the late 80s and early 90s, and over about a 7-year window, every single real estate board moved to computerization. Manual counts no longer existed. What that meant is that there wasn't someone actually checking whether the new listings, were new houses any longer. So they quit counting houses and started counting listing contracts. Well, that's fine. Then 10 years goes by, so now we're into the early 2000s. What happened in the early 2000s is that the cost to process listings on an MLS board went from a one-off per listing payment to a all-included. So in other words, whether you listed one house or you listed 100, you paid the exact same per month as everybody else. That was sold to the agents for a certain reason. I'm not going to get into that description. But what that did is it changed the practice of property, because you no longer had to pay each time you put a new listing in. What I'm saying by that is that people wouldn't just simply revise the listing, maintaining the listing number that was assigned to the property when it first came onto the market. They would cancel the old listing, removing it from the market, and they would put a brand new listing in on the exact same property on a brand new day, removing that old listings, that history of that listing from the market. So a house could be on the market for 6 months, and if someone new drove into town, pulled up the MLS, and it had just been relisted under a new listing, it made it look like that listing was brand new. That was another change. Why did they not alter new sales to listings ratio when that massive change took place? Then 2012, all of a sudden, they're going to start counting, or 2013, they're going to start counting for sale by owners. Are they actually assuming, or is organized real estate en masse admitting that for sale by owner properties sell at the exact same rate as listings that are listed with a real estate agent? Is that what they're saying? Because without altering the new sales to listings ratio, that is in fact what they're saying. They're saying, oh, no, the ratio has stayed the same, even though now we're counting for sale by owners. Now, there are changes like that, Jim, that have taken place every single year and will continue to take place every single year. What was counted as a residential home back in 1990 is not counted as a residential home in 2017. What was counted as a new listing in 2015 is not what is counted as a new listing in 2017. There are listings on the MLS right now that have been listed 12 times in the last 31 days. There are listings on Realtor.ca where they have been assigned 12 different listing numbers, new listings, during the month of July. If that is true, then how come that new listings to sales ratio has remained the same? This is where all of these neophyte realtor pundits who've been on the news are being caught with. Oh, in Ontario here, there was a realtor who was all over BNN, the works. Listing counts surge in May. Well, the truth of the matter is there are fewer houses for sale today in Toronto than there were back in May. But in Vancouver, there are more houses for sale. In Edmonton and Calgary, there are more houses for sale. Edmonton, Calgary, their prices are creeping up a little bit, where in Toronto, prices are falling back. People in Vancouver are still being told prices of condominiums are going through the roof. They're not comparing apples to apples. They're comparing totally different condominiums. Same thing happened in Toronto, where they said that there was a $120,000 price drop in the average selling price in the price of an average home in Toronto between April of 2017 and June of 2017. It is not. There is no drop in price. There is a total shift in the sales mix. Your realtors who are on television talking have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no idea how to break down the housing stock, the buyer stock, take the components apart and put them back together so you know how the market is functioning. They don't know that. One of the reasons why we time the market, the reasons why is because these things are simple facts of a market. We take them apart and we put them back together again. People following us, they all know exactly what's going to happen. If what I'm saying is not true, then their dashboard numbers wouldn't be correct. And then I would be all over the place. Everybody would be jumping all over me saying, hey, what that guy's saying is BS. If that's not happening, obviously. So obviously their dashboards are telling them what the prices are going to be far out, and they're satisfied with that. I don't delete my tweets. I have tweets that are out there or communications that have been out there for 4 or 5 years. Back when people totally misunderstood what I was saying. I would say something, Jim, and they would totally misread what I was saying because they didn't have my perspective. So they still don't have my perspective. I just word things in a little bit different manner. I'm more careful. I don't say something assuming everyone else understands what I'm saying, like I do in your show here. I try to break it down as simple as possible so people can understand it with some common sense. Those posts that you've seen disappear is because they were deceptive. They were lies. They were presenting an image of the market that wasn't true. Real estate agents are provincially regulated. There is no province in Canada where the real estate agent is allowed to talk about a market using metrics, data, or statistics unless they can back it up with decades of research, which is why 99.99% of all the real estate agents in Canada keep their mouth shut.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Ross Kay. Ross, to wrap up the show, I have a simple question. The Toronto Real Estate Board did a survey, and they said 30% of Toronto homeowners plan to list their home this year. Have we seen that giant wave of listings?
So let me give you some perspective here to end the show then, Jim. Right now in the city of Toronto, so that is like saying the city of Vancouver, not Greater Vancouver, not Greater Toronto, the city of Toronto. 1 in every 119 homes is listed for sale. That's it. Not 33 out of 100. 1 in every 119 homes is listed for sale. Organized real estate, as I have told you earlier in the show, buying blind, is a system, an entire structure since the 1950s forward to support sellers getting the highest price possible for their home. Of course, the organized real estate benefits from that because they are paid commission on whatever purchase price is paid. If someone pays $100,000 more for a house, that can be $3,000 to $6,000 more in the real estate agent's pocket. So when you hear a comment like 33% of Toronto homeowners are considering selling in the next year, what your listeners need to understand is this. That would be the single greatest housing correction in the history of the entire world. If 33% of all existing homeowners tried to sell their home in the next 12 months, prices would drop so quickly. And we're not talking sales mix. We're not talking compositional shift. We're not talking about any of the things we talk about here on the show. We're talking about real selling prices of the same home month after month would be dropping, plummeting, because there would be 33 in every 100 listed. Right now, it's 1 in every 119. When you get up to Jim, when you get up to 5 in 100, prices automatically plummet. Okay, we have met, one of the reasons that we are, again, able to forecast so accurately is we have 40 years of data where we track this. These are metrics, these are comments that you don't hear anywhere else. You can Google, I encourage all your listeners, get off the show when we're done here today listening. Google how many of every 100 houses of 100 homes are listed for sale in any city, anywhere in the world. You're not going to find that metric because since the 1950s forward in Canada, everything is designed to get the seller the highest price possible. In conclusion, let's leave it this way. I want to let your listeners understand how they've been misled, why this housing bubble happens, how ignorant real estate agents themselves are to the real estate trading infrastructure, and how upset I am at times when I'm talking to you on the show. It is illegal in British Columbia or Ontario for the buyer to pay their real estate agent a bonus for getting them a lower price on a house. My dream back in 1995 when we first started talking about buyer brokerage was that I was going to finally be able to work for my client to get them the lowest price possible and for my client to pay me based on how good I was. In other words, they were going to pay me on how low of a price that I could get. The entire real estate industry across Canada fought back. I think there was a grand total of about 6 real estate agents across Canada who wanted that system employed because it was the only way to treat buyers equally to how sellers are treated. But no one wanted it. CREA didn't want it, OREA didn't want it, BCREA didn't want it, REMAX didn't want it, Royal LePage. Nobody wanted it because it was going to mess up their commission earnings. You were going to be paid based on your performance, not on simply how the industry worked. The great people, the people who learned, worked hard, worked always for the client's best interest, they were going to be financially rewarded. Instead, we have 120,000 real estate agents in Canada today. One for every, there are 3 houses for every real estate agent. 3 houses are sold, 4 houses are sold for every real estate agent that exists. Bizarre. Crazy. In Ontario, in British Columbia, it is illegal for a home buyer's real estate agent to be financially rewarded for getting them a lower price. In other words, I would say to my buyer, when I was selling what my dream was going to be, I'll take no commission on the first $200,000 of the purchase price. Remember, the average Ontario home back then was selling for about $260,000 when this rule came in. But I want you to pay me 25% for every dollar I get you off the asking price. I did not have one single home buyer of the hundreds that we worked with, thousands, I guess, over that section. Oh yeah, thousands over that section forward. Not one person ever said that was a bad idea. They were more than happy to pay me nothing on the first $200,000 and then give me a reward on how much off of the asking price I could get them. The Ontario government says, no, you can't do that. The British Columbia government says, no, you can't do that. Why? Because the Ontario Real Estate Association, the British Columbia Real Estate Association, the Canadian Real Estate Association, and all the real estate franchisers, which are owned by American corporations, don't want it to happen. I encourage any of your listeners who question what I have to say, call up your provincial regulator, tell them that you want to financially pay your real estate agent on the buyer's side, and you want to give them 50% off, pay them by giving them 50% off of every dollar they get off the asking price. There is not a single province in this country where that would be allowed. It's because buyers are buying blind. Now, we have, since I left organized real estate, came up with a solution to that. But I'll tell you, it is not available anywhere in Canada, and the reason it's not is because it has to come from outside the industry. An industry representative could never say this because they would be breaking the law. I am not subject to the Real Estate Trading Act, so I can tell people what instructions they need to give their real estate agent so that the real estate agent can act this way without breaking the law. As long as the client gives the instruction to the real estate agent, there's no problem. The problem happens when the real estate agent recommends this strategy. That's where the problem is. Don't buy blind, folks. Find out what's going on in your marketplace. Get rid of all those crazy metrics. Don't listen to real estate agents. Don't listen to CREA. Don't listen to REIA. Don't listen to BCREA because they are all seller-side organizations. The higher price you pay, the more commission they earn. It's as simple as that.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jim.
My guest has been real estate consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HoweStreet.com radio. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. You can find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Questions for the show or our guests can be sent to info@HoweStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HoweStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HoweStreet.com radio is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.